Hello, everybody. Jason of New Age Revolution Cave. And it's time for Wrestling with the Past. We go back to the glory days, the best days, the unbeatable, unduplicatable days of WWF wrestling, our childhood, Saturday mornings, sitting in front of our console TVs, watching the good stuff. Right now, we're up to April 27th, 1985. This is an episode of Championship Wrestling, which is our Saturday morning show. As always, Vince and Bruno welcome us to the show. They give the rundown, and we're off and running. Start things off, we have Charlie Fulton teaming up with Mr. X, and I do not believe that this is Danny Davis under the mask. It looks like a different fella. Haven't seen Charlie Fulton in a little while. He's one of the more talented jobbers. They are taking on a team that we have seen a lot of lately, Junkyard Dog and Tito Santana. I don't know if this was just a filler tag team or if they had any plans. Obviously, Tito was going to win the Intercontinental title and was always going to be a singles wrestler until Rick Martel. But Tito and the Dog just work well together. It's a fun tag team. It brings out a lot of Tito's personality because Junkyard Dog is over the top with the dancing. I've so far for the last month or so, I've enjoyed all the Tito Junkyard Dog matches. Whenever Junkyard Dog is wrestling on TV, Vince McMahon has to really make himself sound cool. So Vince McMahon, when Junkyard Dog comes out, gives us the old, yeah, getting down with the JYD. Ha ha ha. He has to be, hip and cool. JYD and Charlie Fulton are in first. Dog is working the armbar. Dog tags in Tito, who also goes to work on the arm. It's kind of the basic start to most matches that I've been watching lately. Tito back and forth. Mr. X comes in. Then Junkyard Dog comes in. Mr. X tries punching the Dog. And of course, he hits Junkyard Dog in the head. And you're not supposed to do that because, the Junkyard Dog has a hard head, according to 1985 folklore. And so he just kind of stares at Mr. X, and he's not happy with that. A little bit of offense from Charlie Fulton as he rakes the eyes of the Dog to get the upper hand. A few punches, some chokes. Junkyard Dog hits the big, over-exaggerated clothesline. We've seen that many times. Whips Charlie Fulton into the ring, into the ropes. Junkyard Dog hits the ropes himself and then puts his arm out and just kind of lets Fulton run into his arm. It looks, the build-up to it looks good. The actual clothesline looks awful. However, at the same time, as he whips Fulton into the ropes, Junkyard Dog comes off his own rope. He tags Tito Santana, hits the big clothesline. Tito's in. Runs the ropes. As Charlie Fulton gets up, Tito hits the flying forearm for the pin. What else we got? The dancing, of course. We have the post-match dance celebration. This time Tito is actually doing so I'm not going to stand up and do the Junkyard Dog dance. Do you want to do it for me?
Yeah, sure.
All right, come over here. And just, here's Liam. Just move your legs together. Open them and close them. There you go. That's it. Okay, get out. A little slower. A little slower with less convulsing. Your legs were having a seizure there. That's the Junkyard Dog dance. So Tito starts to do that. And so both of them now are holding the top rope with one hand and doing, the leg thing with another hand. As you know, Junkyard Dog is going to get out of the ring and he's going to go grab a kid. And he grabs a little kid who just has the, biggest moment of her life, being pulled into the ring by Tito Santana and Junkyard Dog. I noticed after he was done, when the wrestlers bring the kids into the ring, they don't take care of them afterwards. They don't pick them back up and put them over the barrier. They don't do any of that. They just leave, and the kid is just stranded at ringside. So the referee takes the kid and walks the kid over to the family. And I'm sure that there's some officials around ringside who do that. But the Dog and Tito, they're the performers. They're not going to take care of this. They have people to do that. I always wondered, why they didn't take care of the children at the end of the match. We have an update on Lord Alfred Hayes, or an update by Lord Alfred Hayes. He talks about Ricky Steamboat. Lord Alfred is awful when he's not working with somebody. So him doing the update, he's so awkward. And I don't know if he writes his own updates because, well, I don't even know if there was writing back then at all. Because Lord Alfred Hayes is talking like Lord Alfred Hayes. Not his accent, but just his verbiage and the way he talks. So it's almost like he prepared his own update because it's not good. He doesn't have a lot of vocabulary, it seems, that is, modern or he just doesn't. He does better on TNT being the guy that plays off of Vince McMahon. But it's hard to watch these updates because he's really not a good talker at all. Next up, we have a big, goofy-looking Jim Young, and he takes on Brutus Beefcake. Jim Young with 2 quick headlocks, and Vince McMahon is absolutely losing his mind that Jim Young has caught Beefcake in a headlock. Bruno says, well, that's just upsetting Beefcake, so Jim Young's in trouble. Jim Young actually holding the headlock for longer than expected as Beefcake tries unsuccessfully to get out of it. So this is driving everybody insane. Jim Young holding on, and Beefcake trying all of his stuff. He's frustrating the Beefer. This is the most offense I've ever seen Jim Young have in my entire life. Quick back suplex. He's in the headlock. Beefcake grabs him, does the back suplex. That ends Jim Runs Young. Jim Runs Young. That ends Jim Young's run at Glory. Finally ends the ridiculous offense by Jim Young. I've said Jim Young
Stop saying Jim
17 or 18 times in this. Horrible botch in this match. Beefcake whips Young into the ropes and sets up for a very simple back body drop, right? Ducks his head, gets ready. But at the same time, Jim Young is coming off the ropes awkwardly. He ducks at the same time. So both guys have ducked. Now, instead of just stopping there, Jim Young knows he messed up. So Jim Young actually just dives over Brutus Beefcake chest first and lands on the mat. His knees hit Beefcake's back, and it's just a horrible looking thing. And Vince McMahon congratulates Beefcake on a great move. Beefcake's not happy that Jim Young just messed this up, so he lands 2 kicks to the chest of Jim Young, picks him back up again, whips him into the rope, hits a flying knee for the pin, and then lands another big boot to the chest on poor Jim Young. He's angry on poor Jim Young. But Vince McMahon tries to sell the heck out of it, that he, I don't know why he would congratulate Beefcake when Beefcake never even made contact with Young. Young just dove over Beefcake. I hope that dog's not outside barking. Is the dog inside?
All right. Did Vince McMahon die?
Does Vince McMahon die? No, he's not dead yet. He may as well be, but he's not. We have a local interview with Mean Gene hyping up the Boston Garden show. This was going to be Hogan versus Piper, but they changed the match to Hogan and Snuka versus Piper and Orton, which is absolutely fantastic. Again, and I think some of you have mentioned, when does Snuka leave? Probably soon, but he's still there. He's not on TV. He's still there. And Hogan, during this interview, actually brings up the hatred between Snuka and Piper and actually referenced the coconut smashing on Piper's pit, which is cool to see. Moondog Spot teaming up with Bob Wade from the famous David Sammartino neck-breaking suplex. Moondog Spot and Bob Wade, they take on former WWF Tag Team Champions, the U.S. Express. A couple arm drags by Barry Windham, quick tags to Rotundo. Rotundo jumps off the second rope as Windham is holding, I think, Wade's arm or Spot's arm. Rotundo with the arm smash, then the arm drag, then it's just, these are all kind of the same match formula, with these guys. Bob Wade tags out. Moondog Spot comes in to take on Rotundo. That's automatically going to get Spotty some offense on Rotundo. Mike Rotundo gets a slight hot tag to Barry Windham, who comes in, takes over. Barry Windham with a great-looking drop kick on Spot as he comes off the ropes. So we do a whip into the ropes drop kick, which always looks very good. Spot gets out of there after the drop kick, tags in Bob Wade, and that's going to be the whooping. That's going to be the end of the match. Windham works over Bob Wade for a little while, gets him backed up into the corner, and then hits the Bulldog for the win. Another Mean Gene interview talking about the Boston Garden Show. This time we got Tito Santana talking about his rematch with Brutus Beefcake. Because apparently at the last Boston show it was Santana versus Valentine. Santana had Valentine reeling, and Brutus Beefcake came in to interfere. I don't have that show. They weren't televising Boston Garden this early yet. At least I don't think so. And so I never saw that match. But now to get revenge, Tito and Beefcake, which is such an LJN match. I think that's such a fun sounding match. Tito versus Beefcake. Great stuff. Next up, we've got Don Morocco taking on Salvatore Bellomo, who we haven't seen in a while. All early offense from Morocco, including the press slam guillotine that he's used twice now, where he drops the opponent on the rope. Morocco goes for a very botched-looking Russian leg sweep. They just didn't work together. They didn't go forward and then backward, so it looked awkward and confusing, and they just kind of fell on each other. Some offense by Bellomo, a few right hands, but Morocco's not selling. This is very, very limited offense from Sal, and we don't usually see old Bellomo not having as much offense, but he's got nothing. Morocco's just killing him. Morocco whips Bellomo into the turnbuckle, but Bellomo quickly jumps up on the second rope, dives backwards towards Morocco, and Morocco catches him and turns him around and hits the tombstone, which is fantastic. Bellomo weighs probably 260, 270, like you, and Morocco just catches him in midair and then flips him around. I mean, it's not the cleanest, sharpest looking turn, but he gets it, and he nails the tombstone there for the win. Love it. Great domination of Salvatore Bellomo. We have the return of the actual Piper's Pit. This is no longer in Madison Square Garden, so now they are filmed in front of the live studio audience. We've got Bobby Heenan. He's alone in Piper's Pit with Piper, and Bobby Heenan recaps the whole of Orndorff firing. So they're finally addressing this now on Championship Wrestling. They addressed it on TNT where it happened. We haven't seen Orndorff. Now Piper and Heenan are talking about it. Heenan goes through the whole thing that he did on TNT. He's furious. He's actually kicking around the set of Piper's Pit. Piper's trying to calm him down. So now we're working towards something. This is good. Next up, we've got Steve Lombardi taking on David Sammartino. Steve Lombardi rocking a little mustache for the first time, but it hasn't quite come in yet. It's like a 17-year-old boy trying to get his mustache going in the 80s. Let's see if Sammartino destroys anything this week, if he kills Lombardi. Bruno says this should be a fast-moving match, as both have pretty good speed. David and Steve Lombardi have pretty good speed, according to Bruno. David on top initially with some hammer locks, some amateur wrestling, more hip tosses, more arm drags, more body slams from David, just to counter a couple of punches from Lombardi. David is actually the victim of a fantastic flying elbow from Lombardi. You know, the whip into the rope and then kind of the turn and the back elbow looked great from Lombardi. Surprising high-level offense move. After that, Lombardi gets a body slam on David for a 2 count even. After a comeback, we get an atomic drop from David Sammartino, a Russian leg sweep, and follow that up with the whip into the ropes and the power slam for the win. This was actually a pretty good match. Little 2.5, 3 minute match, but it was fine. David didn't mess anything up, and we got some cool looking offense from Steve Lombardi. All right, we have a rare 6-man tag team match here that I'm looking forward to, because as it was being announced, I was like, what? Who's it gonna be? Because in the ring right now are Ron D, Jose Luis Rivera, and Tony Gurria. They're taking on the Iron Sheik, Nikolai Volkov, and a mystery opponent. And so for a few minutes, I was like, who? But then I remember Saturday night's main event is coming soon. And these three guys team up on Saturday night main event, which leads to the face turn of George the Animal Steel, who is announced last. He comes out from backstage. Crowd is excited. McMahon says, "Oh, haven't seen him in forever, Bruno. Oh, yeah, very dangerous, George Steele." So Steele comes lumbering down the ring by himself. He doesn't have Lou Albano anymore, right? So he gets in the ring and he does the George Steele stuff, and it's fine. And it's it's the usual match. We got Tony Gurria and Iron Sheik start off. They have a great few seconds of wrestling. That's the best we're going to get out of the job, guys. Eventually, Nikolai comes in, does all his power stuff. It ends up with George Steele, who is tagged in. Well, Nikolai Volkov comes in and works over the arm of Ron D, which then allows George Steele to come in, hit that flying hammerlock, and Ron D is done. After that, they kind of beat up the bad guys again, throw him out of the ring. George Steele eats a turnbuckle. Freddie Blassie, Sheik and Volkov trying to get George Steele to the back, and that's it. And again, it's setting up for Piper's Pit. I'm sorry, not Piper's Pit. It's setting up for Saturday night's main event, which is coming very soon. And we've got Sheik, Volkov, and George Steele taking on U.S. Express and Ricky Steamboat. And we've got the face turn of George Steele just coming in like 2 weeks. So that's pretty awesome. I thought that they might want to tease like a little dissension this match, but they don't. It's all George Steele being bad guy. Finally, we got the Mean Gene interview to close the show. He's got Piper and Orton. It's the Boston Garden show. They're talking about Hogan and Snuka. And that's about it. Just Piper and Orton talking about the upcoming match. And that is it. That's Championship Wrestling 427? April 27th, 1985. I've got All-Star Wrestling to do. I've got a Philly Spectrum House show also on 427. So we've got 3 Saturday shows. What a great day for a wrestling fan in the Philly market. You could watch Championship Wrestling. You could watch All-Star. And then at night, you could go to the house show. I don't think they aired the house show on the same day, but you can go to the Spectrum and see the show. So we'll be reviewing those 2 shows. That should close out April. And then we're only a few weeks away from our first Saturday night's main event, which we are going to incorporate into a Nup All Night. I will watch Saturday night's main events only at 11:30 on Saturday nights, guaranteed. I will not watch them at any other time. So that is all. Good night now.